Hello, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the 6th episode of Build on Open Source. Derek, good morning. Good afternoon, even.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Yes. Hi, Rick. Welcome.
We seem to be sounding every week more and more like the two Ronnies.
Yes. Is that intentional? For anybody who doesn't know who the two Ronnies is, I'll put a link in the chat.
Yeah, Google it. You will thank us later, I'm sure. Anyway, Derek, how have you been the last couple of weeks? What have you been up to?
Oh, well, Rick, since our last episode, you may have heard there's a big conference coming to Vegas in a bit called reInvent. So, like yourself, I have a few talks at reInvent, and one of those talks involves building a .NET application. So I've been building that for the last 2 weeks, which has been fun.
Nice.
What about yourself, Rick? I see you've got a new hat there. Have you been traveling somewhere?
I have. I've literally just come back from Raleigh in North Carolina, my first time, and it's a beautiful place. I definitely recommend it. So I was speaking at All Things Open. So I actually have the hat. I have the T-shirt here, which is stunning, and actually it contains some rather nice artwork and a nice lead on, Derek. So thank you for that. For a very exciting moment.
I'm jealous.
We have the artwork. I've got a signed poster. So this is I think an A2 or A1 size poster, which is signed by the artist.
Yep.
And we're giving it away in the first exclusive raffle we've done. And so this is an experiment we're doing here on Build on Open Source. We hope it's going to work.
Raffle.
This is how it's going to work. So Derek, do you want to put the slide up on how this raffle is going to work?
Yes, it would be my absolute pleasure, Rick, to get with the show. Yes.
Okay. So folks who tuned in and who want a chance to win this poster, and I will ship it to you so that we'll get the winner. So please follow the link. The link is a survey that we will only take you 30 seconds to complete. And when you get that survey, you will receive a code. Now, the code is going to say something around AWS credit code, right? And it's going to have a number that's got 5 blocks of numbers, right? Now, these aren't AWS credit codes, right? These are raffle tickets. And what I want you to do is keep that number, okay? Because at the end of the show, we are going to publish the first 4 blocks of numbers. And if they match yours, I want you then to DM me on the Build on Open, your last one. Or if you're still in the chat, let us know in the chat, okay, that you've got the winning number, okay, and you will win this poster. So we're going to hope it's going to work. It's a bit of fun, but it is a great poster. The artwork is amazing, and let's see how it goes.
And I've entered, Rick. See, I hope I win.
Oh yeah, I have not said that. AWS employees can't enter, so I guess good luck, Derek. So I was at All Things Open. Really one of the best open source events you can go to. Amazing people, brilliant speakers, and I actually fulfilled one of my long-term ambitions, which is I listened to the Changelog podcast. So Jared and Adam were there, and they had a booth there. So I walked up to them and I was like, I went there to pay homage to my heroes, right, my podcast heroes, and unbelievably, they had me on their podcast. So I'm really excited about that. So and I also met Michael, who's the kind of the lead for the Open Source Underdogs podcast as well. So really, all in all, a great session. Had great event and some really nice things that happened. So yeah, it was great. It was a great week all in all. And I also tried grits for the first time. So if anyone who watches this afterwards from America, when you see American movies, they talk about grits, and I tried them, and no, they're not for me.
What are they?
Sorry.
Well, excuse my ignorance.
It's like watery porridge, right? Mixed with sand and no flavor.
That's the name.
Am I selling it?
Yeah. Next time I'm over, I'll grab some grits.
So actually, for people who are diving in, if you tried grits, right, let us know what you think about grits. Because I was told that apparently it's all about the gravy. It's all about what you put with the grits. So if you're, I know that we're not broadcasting live in an American time zone, but if you have been there, traveled to America, you've tried grits, let us know what you think, right? Because I'm definitely not a fan. But anyway, so that's what I've been up to, Derek.
Yeah, well, you've definitely had a more interesting time than me. I've been stuck here in Perth, Western Australia, coding, and you've been flying the world, talking to some of your heroes, and having a jolly good time. It sounds like.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. Good. So I think that's a good segue into the
Let's
first
do it.
part of the show.
Just bear with me. I've got a lot of clicks here, viewers. But let's go to this bit.
Yay! It worked. we're getting professionalists, Derek. We're getting good at this. Yeah. So as always, we're going to be covering the open source news over the last couple of weeks, as documented in my loving newsletter, the AWS Open Source News and Updates, which I've now rebranded to newsletter. I don't know why I didn't do it before, but hey, progress.
You finally got there.
Yeah.
You took the hint, and the newsletter it is.
Yeah, so 133. I can't believe it's been 133 episodes. That's it's crazy. Coming up to 3 years at the end of this year. So let's look at some of the projects first of all, because there've been some absolute corkers.
There's some great ones on today.
Yeah. So first one, a little tool here called the AWS aws-code-habits, which unusual name, but it is actually really cool. And I got this from Corey Quinn's newsletter. If you haven't signed up to that, I recommend it. There's always nuggets in there that are useful. He covers general AWS stuff. But what this allows you to do is it allows you to effectively create a life cycle for your logs. And prune your logs, right? This happens to me a lot. I do a lot of demos, and my CloudWatch logs groups gets more massive and massive, right? So I've actually tested this out. It works great. So definitely recommend it. How do you manage your logs, Derek?
Badly. Delete.
Good answer. Yes. Don't we all? Yes. And in these cost-conscious times, the perfect tool really to help you stay on top of that, because sometimes there are costs associated with that. So that's the first interesting project. cloudcanvas, is another interesting tool that is a Mac only thing at the moment, and I have downloaded it, but I'm in the process of moving my SSO from Google Directory to something else. So I couldn't actually get this working. But the idea is really to create like a GUI layer on top of AWS to help you more easily interact with AWS resources. Now there's only a limited number of resources currently supported, but it looks interesting, and it is Mac only. So if you're a Windows person, why don't you check out the project and see if you can collaborate to create a Windows version, perhaps.
Yep, for sure. But I use a Mac, so I'm happy.
Yeah. So have you tried it out?
I haven't yet, but I may know the author.
Oh, you might know the author. Exactly. And hopefully, maybe in a future episode he might come on.
Yeah, who knows? Watch this space.
Who knows? Watch this space. Right. Okay. Cool. So next project. Okay, one for the machine learning people, or people advocates or practitioners. So atlearn is a transfer learning toolkit. So effectively, transfer learning is where you take a trained model and you tweak it, maybe with some additional data to change the behavior of the model for your use case. And this is actually a toolkit that allows you to make that process more simple. Okay, so if you are a machine learning practitioner, then a project for you. Next one is interesting. I'm not sure if you had a chance to check this one out, Derek. AWS CodeHabits. So this is like an opinionated current good practices way of setting up a project with all the things you typically need to do, right? So your make files, templates, all that kind of stuff, and it creates kind of this common layout which you can use, which is kind of interesting. I've not really kind of dived deep into this one, but this week in the it's kind of a bit of a theme actually in the next newsletter, which is going to be published on Monday. There's a workshop and some additional stuff that you can check out as well. So anyway, if you're interested in kind of like trying to find out how to do better project layouts and automate some of the things you do, definitely something to check out.
Yeah, writing your own make target is a pain in the bum. So if there's a library of them, that is great.
Right. Yeah. And actually, what I don't know at the moment is how it's similar to an open source project called Progen, which for people who know CDK and one of the original authors, then he put together a project called Progen, and it's supposed to do what for CDK for Cloud Stacks what you do for your development environment. Okay, so it allows you to configure in an automated, repeatable way your developer tools. So I'm kind of interested to find out how it compares to something like that. So if you use Progen or if you've tried out AWS CodeHabit, then let us know in the chat. And as always, if you're listening, if you're dialed in, then make sure that you ask questions as we go along, or let us know about your favorite open source projects and software. And if you checked out the newsletter last week, what stood out for you? So next one, cargo check external types. So this one is for Rust programmers. I'm not exactly sure how I would use this, other than it's a tool for developing libraries that helps you, make them I guess more higher quality.
Efficient. Well, Rust is built efficient on efficiency, isn't it? I haven't really delved into Rust yet.
It's one of those things that's on my to-do list. My to-do list is like so long, but I think it's I am seeing a pattern recently of a lot of tools being released to help the Rust developers' lives in areas such as automation, QA, and that kind of stuff. And this is just another one of those tools that you can try out.
It's really interesting. We have quite a few talks at reInvent on Rust, which really shows you how much it's being adopted.
Yeah, indeed, and quite rightly so, right? It's got some great benefits. So the next one, which I'm not quite sure how, actually, OQpy is how it's pronounced. It's there in the text. Now, quantum is something that's a mystery to me. I'm not exactly sure what a lot of these terminology means. But this was released last week, and for people who are using quantum, this is a tool that hopefully will help your life easier. Now, there is a blog post that explains how to use this tool to make it easier to write programs using one of the programming languages of quantum. But one day, maybe we will understand quantum, Derek. At the moment, today is not that day.
I think maybe a parallel Derek in another universe is learning that right now, and he's going to show me.
Well, and maybe he'll show me too.
Maybe we'll get entangled, and things will happen.
That's a word I'm familiar with, quantum. So also, if you're in the chat, if you're dialed in and you're using quantum, help Derek and me in our future parallel universes. What is it?
I really liked Quantum Leap. That was a classic sci-fi show. Anyway,
was that to do with quantum computing? I thought it was fashion.
No, it wasn't at all.
Anyway, so I think last week's for me the one of the projects of apart from cloudcanvas that everyone really needed to check out was this one from Massimo. Massimo for quite a while has actually been writing about his adventures of WASM. Okay, and he's put together most normal people like us would just put a very simple kind of repo out there that would allow us to do some of our experiments. But this is a awesome repo. It's very, very well thought out, very well documented, and shows some proof of concepts of running WASM on a number of AWS compute environments. Okay, so if you're interested in this area or curious, then definitely check this out and follow Massimo because he's definitely diving deep into this area at the moment.
Yeah, and CDK Dia, that is cool. I haven't seen that before.
We featured it on the newsletter, not on the show. So I've talked about it. It was a while ago, and it is a really, really good project. There's actually there's a couple. There's CDK Dia, and there's also a thick client, which actually I'm not sure if I've got it in my installed on my Mac. Mm-hmm. But I did one. I've definitely showed it in the previous newsletter. It's definitely worth checking out. So yes.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah.
Okay. So let's. There's a few more projects from last week as well. These are more samples. I'm not going to go through these because I want to talk about some of the ones that are in the upcoming newsletter.
Let's go to that.
That it's going to be published on Monday. So people who are viewing, you are getting the first look at this. First tool is enclaver. Now, one of my favorite features.
I've got a question in the chat, Rick. A first-time viewer has jumped in and asked, what's going on here? So I think we'd answer that before we get into the second newsletter.
Yeah.
AWS ENG you have the pleasure of be watching Build on Open Source, where Ricardo and myself, we go through all of the best new open source releases as part of Ricardo's blog that we're going through now. So strap yourselves in, and if you're interested in open source, you came to the right place. Sorry, Rick.
And let's know if we answered your question. If you've got any more questions, please fire away. Derek and myself are here to answer your questions. Derek, you know what, Derek? What we forgot to do at the beginning?
What?
We forgot to tell people what's coming up. Oh my goodness! So, folks, we have got later on in about 5 minutes. We've got our former colleague Javier Ramirez from QuestDB, who's going to be showing us about QuestDB and time series data. So make sure you stay for that, right? Because it's going to be awesome. The demo is great. So apologies, because we should have said that at the beginning about what's happening, but we got lost in the raffle, which is my fault. So
anyway. We got excited by the raffle.
I did get excited. So apologies for that slight unprofessionalism there in the flow of the show. But back to this week's new open source projects. So enclaver is a new kind of open source toolkit that helps to make it easier to understand how to work with Nitro enclaves. So Nitro enclaves are a feature, one of my favorite features of Nitro based EC2 instances that allow you to kind of effectively create a super secure kind of hyphened off environment for running applications. Now, most people are familiar with TPM, Trusted Processing Module, I think, or something like that, which you typically have on a lot of laptops that allows you to store a certificate. It doesn't have compute, it just has storage, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, people on the show. But actually, enclaves actually allow you to do more. So they're effectively like a virtual machine. And they do things like software attestation, encryption, so that you can actually run software within a virtual machine in such a way that you can absolutely trust and have no interference with it. But it can be daunting to understand the use cases and understand how it works. And so tools are beginning to emerge like this one, enclaver, that allow you to kind of get a better handle of how that works. And he's also the author, Eugene, has put together a very nice blog post. So again, from point of view of essential posts, this one is definitely something you should definitely read out. If you're not familiar with what enclaves are, then it's a good primer, and hopefully follow the blog post and the tutorial and get started with this, because it's super interesting area.
So AWS says Nitro have NVMe storage.
Does Nitro have NVMe storage? So Nitro separates out the storage, networking, and compute from the host. So the actual storage is from my understanding is separate. I'm not quite sure what you mean by does Nitro have NVMe. Nitro itself is just a card that sits in the EC2 hosts, and then allows us to have more of the actual underlying host to be carved up for customers to use. So that includes things like being able to create more custom silicon, different instance types, different storage types. So NVMe is one, but also more magnetic, slower disk as well. So there's a separation. So hopefully that helps explain that. We'll try and dig up a post that actually dives deep into Nitro and its relationship with storage for you. So that's the first project. The second one, which came up this week, was Secret Scanner. And it's a new tool from AWS Harrell that allows you to effectively explore and search for exposed secrets in your S3 buckets, right? So who doesn't want to do that, right? And there's a blog post that on how to use it, including what the workflow looks like. So again, it's really important to make sure you don't store your secrets in S3 buckets. So check this tool out and make sure that you're covered, right?
What was interesting, Rick, is the first two elements in your blog this week are both security related. I think what I've seen certainly over the last month is because there's been lots of hacks in Australia where I am at the minute, and security is starting to get the front of everybody's mind. At AWS, it's always been top priority, but now everybody else seems to be going, oh, security.
Yeah.
It's important. Yes, it is.
Indeed. And actually, it is a theme. So over the last 2 years, when I've been running this blog and featuring new projects, I'd say about maybe 10 to 15% of all projects are security related. So yeah, it's definitely not just a short-term trend, but it's a longer-term trend. And these projects tend to be covering things like compliance, governance, as well as scanners, right? And they all aim to try and simplify and make your life easier. So definitely worth checking it out. So just want to cover up a couple of projects before we transition over to our special guest of the week. And this one here, I definitely want to talk about sandbox accounts, right? Who has been in a situation where they were running a hackathon or a workshop internally and they wanted to provision in a managed way accounts for something? Exactly, we all have. Now, there are a number of open source projects I featured in the past, the most common one being DCE, Disposable Compute Environment from Optum. But there's a new one, there's a new project. So check this out if that's something you're trying to do. Definitely worth checking out. It looks very polished. It's got some nice UI. So yeah, so definitely something to check out. We've got a few more. There are other projects as well as samples. But in the time, for the purpose of time, I want to transition to kind of the guest of the week. But again, for those people who are watching, this is going to be published on Monday. But if you want early access to this before anyone else, then we'll be sharing a link at the end of the show for complete a few questions, and then you'll get a link to this newsletter. So
I'm going to put the link in mine. Yeah, I'm going to find the link. I'll have to create the link. Yes, let's go to our next section. Rick, good idea.
Hey there! Thanks for checking out this video. Remember to give it a like and share with your community. Then hit subscribe and the bell for all the latest content that will help you build on AWS.